Welcome to this session looking at an overview of 1+2 languages. This is designed for student teachers, probationers, and anyone new into teaching languages, focusing on primary. The slides from this presentation come from a longer presentation given by Louise Glenn and Shona Hugh from Education Scotland in August of 2021. And you can access the full PowerPoint by clicking on the link in this PowerPoint. I'm just going to go over a few key slides. So just what is the 1+2 languages policy or framework? So there, in 2011, the Scottish Government put forward a manifesto, and the idea was that all pupils in Scotland would learn 2 languages in addition to their mother tongue. And the aim was for it to be in place by 2021. This was delayed due to the pandemic, and it should now be in place and fully implemented by August 2022. So what does it actually mean? So as you can see here, it's based on the European Union of 1+2 model. 1 is the mother tongue, that's the L1, and the two other languages, in addition to the mother tongue, are known as the L2 and the L3. So the L2 would be started in P1, and it would continue all the way down through, all the way up through to P7. So that's your L2. It'd be a progressive curriculum building on language covered each year through different topics, different contexts across the curriculum, and there would be revision, recycling, and obviously new language added throughout, focusing on language and key structures. The L3 would be started in P5, and in primary, pupils would have an experience of the L3 in P5, 6 and 7. And this could be organised in different ways. It could be the same language over the 3 years, taught every week, for instance. It could be a language taught in a block of time, such as like a term, to give learners a chance to progress. It needs to go beyond word level, so there needs to be a progression where learners can put together short phrases or sentences, and it also needs to develop all 4 language skills: listening, talking, reading, and writing. It could also be through a block, but focusing, for instance, on a different language in each year, or it could be a language done each year but repeated on a weekly basis. And it could also be done through IDL, linking in with a topic, for instance, something like fair trade, and looking at fair trade products from South America and focusing on Spanish. It's important, though, that it doesn't just become a cultural input, and that it does include the language as well. So that's the L3. Secondary schools would ideally be continuing the L2 that started in P1, and that would go through to the end of S3, the end of the broad general education, and that's the entitlement. And then at some point within the BGE, there would be an L3, but it doesn't need to be in each of the 3 years. It could just be in one of those 3 years. And again, it can be delivered in a similar way to primary, in that it could be a block of language over a good period of time, or it could be throughout the whole year on a weekly basis, for instance. It can also be part of Modern Languages for Life and Work Award, for instance. So there are lots of different options there. There is also one slight caveat in that the L2 that started in P1 and goes through to P7, it doesn't need to continue into secondary if learners have had the opportunity to experience and achieve at second level in their L3, Then when they go to secondary, they can continue the L3 and that can become their L2, and they no longer need to continue with the L2 that was started in P1. That's obviously only if the secondary school has provision for that. It's also important to point out that there is no need for the L3 to continue and progress into secondary. So secondary schools can choose different L3s to their primary schools. And then post-PGE, there should be the opportunity for national qualifications or awards or short courses. That would be in the L2 or in the L3 or in both. So there should be some sort of progression route, whether that's purely in S4 or 5 and 6 or at some point in that senior phase. There are lots of examples of case studies on the CILT website and all the policy documents which go into a lot more detail and look at what is expected as well. They can all be found through CILT and through the National Improvement Hub on Education Scotland has got the key documents. Okay, just to sort of summarise, obviously there are the experiences and outcomes which start at P1 and go all the way through. So you've got early first, second, third and fourth level. They give the sorts of skills and activities that children should be developing across listening, talking, reading and writing. There's also a progression framework and there are the benchmarks. So these documents show us, what we should be teaching and what children should be working towards. And here we can just see a sort of a summary of that we're moving from the exposure and the focus is on listening and talking very much in the early years, laying the foundations for matching sounds with the written word for reading when they get onto that at first level. So we're really focusing at early level at using stories, using songs, using games, using rhymes, using activities which get the children to enjoy learning a language and developing those key skills. As we go into the middle and then upper primary, we would be looking for language lessons not only to be embedded in the daily routines, which would be the focus really at early and lower first level, but moving towards discrete lessons regularly, having that input and that time in the middle and upper primary. The shift will be from the listening and talking to developing reading and writing it, and so working across all four skills and looking at language structures and also the phonics and looking at alphabet and all of that. We'll still be having an emphasis on, activities that are, encompassing songs, stories, games, active learning, getting the children to look at languages in other areas of the curriculum and building on that. Transitions, so just sort of emphasising that there should be liaison work between primary and secondary so that languages are taken forward when they go to secondary and there isn't any restarting of languages in S1. It should be building on what's already been taught in primary. And here are some ideas really for how we can do that. So this is just key information about the Northern Alliance, the different authorities that are involved and the different contact details. These may well change over a period of time depending on development officers and if they are still in post, but the website links are all still accurate and contact details will be on those websites for the support. The Northern Alliance also has its own websites, collating resources from across the different authorities in the Northern Alliance, with family learning and a professional learning hub, and also curriculum resources. All of these are hyperlinked and you can find all the resources there. Hopefully that gives you a brief introduction. As I say, there is a lot more resources available to you. And if you click on the Northern Alliance Professional Hub, there's a whole section on getting started with languages, which will signpost all the key resources.